Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to today's webinar on Skype for Business, the Journey to the Cloud, developing an effective roadmap for UC migration, on-prem, hybrid, and in the cloud. My name is John Hand, and I'm the Microsoft Global Alliance Director for IR. And joining me today, I have two guest speakers from Microsoft, Pranavi and Sandeep, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. My name is Pranavi, and I'm a partner technical consultant here with Microsoft Advisory Team, and we work closely with partners. And I've been in IT for about 4 years, and I look forward to the session today. And over to you, Sandeep.
Thank you, Pranavi. I'm John. My name is Sandeep Narkade, and I'm a senior partner technical consultant with Microsoft, focusing on unified communications. I've been working with Microsoft for about 6.5 years, but overall in messaging and collaboration for about 16 years. So that's me.
Thank you, Pranavi, and thank you, Sandeep. And for those of you who have joined us in the past, you know a little bit about who we are, but our company is IR. We were founded in the year 1988, so we've been around for 28 years. We're globally listed in the Australian Stock Exchange. We've got about 1,000 plus enterprise customers, and about 120 of those are from the Fortune 500. And in the last 5 years, we've returned 600% to our investors. And again, like I say, if you want to get involved in that, we're on the Australian Stock Exchange. From a DNA perspective for Microsoft, we're a Microsoft Gold Communications partner. We're also a national and global sponsor for the Skype for Business users groups. We're also certified in the IT Pro Tools program for monitoring and most recently troubleshooting. And it's so recent, I didn't put it on this slide today, but I did want to bring that up. Also, we were named a cool vendor by Gartner, which is an award that they give out to vendors that show some promise for additional technologies or future-looking technologies. And we were nominated for that Cool Vendor Award specifically for our availability and performance for Skype for Business. And you can see some of the customers we have here on the slide. I won't go into that. But we also have our solution is called Prognosis, and we'll talk about that later in the program. But we are the market leader with unified communications and call centers with over 13 million endpoints under management. And we're also certified for the SDN API solution. We were the first vendor certified on Skype for Business, not just the Link server, but on the Skype for Business server. We have more than 70 developers working on Prognosis. We have offices throughout the world. Our headquarters are in Australia, but our US headquarters are based out of Denver. So let's get started. And what we're going to cover today is deployment choices. We're going to do a feature comparison of on-premise, online, and hybrid. We'll show you a decision tree and how to make that decision when to move to the cloud. We'll talk about the cloud PBX and PSTN connectivity. So before we get too far into the program, what I'd like to do is take a poll of the audience to find out exactly what your current UC environment is. So if you would take a moment, we're going to start the voting. We'll leave it up for just about 60 seconds. And you have a few choices here. You either have a Cisco environment, an Avaya environment, a mix of Cisco and Avaya, or a mix of Cisco, Avaya, and Link and Skype for Business, or other. And this is anonymous. It's just to give us a pulse of what the audience is looking to hear. So please go ahead and cast your votes, and then we'll keep the poll open for about another 30 seconds. So right now, the winning votes are the mix of Cisco, Avaya, and Link. Yeah, let's see. Again, it's completely anonymous, so we're just trying to get a feel for what's happening out there. We've got to vote for Cisco. We've got about another 10 seconds, and we're going to close the poll. So we have Avaya, we have Cisco, we have a mix. Let's go for 10 more seconds. Give everyone a chance to weigh in. Okay. About a third of you have voted. Please take a moment to just cast your vote. And we'll be closing it in about 10 seconds. So Okay. So it's an interesting picture. Right now, it looks like we have a very mixed audience, which is really good. Okay. So what we're going to do, we'll stop the voting now. You have a chance to weigh in a little bit later. But we're going to move forward and talk about deployment choices. Sandeep?
Thanks, John. So in the Skype for Business world, there are deployment choices spanning from a pure on-premises deployment to a pure cloud deployment. In my role, I talk to a lot of customers and partners every day. What we see today is hybrid, however, is really a preferred choice by customers. And I'll talk about a few reasons around that. While you see on the left-hand side, I have pure on-premises, which really gives you highest control and deepest integration with various APIs that you have, third-party integrations. On the extreme right, you have a pure online services, which is managed by Microsoft. It's a cloud service and really the lowest maintenance. You really don't have to worry about performance or scalability of that solution. And that is where, in the cloud, where we see a lot of innovations happening. You would have heard this and seen this in Microsoft announcements that all the latest features are first going to be iterated in our cloud, and they may or may not really be pushed to on-premises, but they will. That will be the later stage. And that's why people want to still maintain some sort of an on-premises deployment so that they have that control or the integration that is possible with on-premises, who also want to take advantage of the new features that we are introducing in cloud every day. And that's where hybrid really makes a lot of sense for our customers. It gives you best of the both worlds in terms of on-premises and online. It lets you have a split of users that can remain on premises and another subset of users that can be in online. So, from a scalability perspective, you can scale it well. You don't have to really add hardware into your on-premises. You can just scale in online. It also gives you ability to move users between on-premises and online as well. So a set of users that you have in online today can be moved back to on-premises when you want them to be. It's really a flexible solution. It gives that adoption in the customer's hand. It lets them choose if they were to migrate to cloud, the pace that they can, that they want to move to cloud. So that's really the hybrid. And from our discussion with the customers, that's really the topology that we see is the most popular one today. But when you actually make that decision, you also have to understand the features that you will have being a pure on-premises or being a pure cloud user or a user homed on-premises in a hybrid solution and a user homed an online pool in a hybrid solution. So I've listed some in this table here. If you take a look at the basic features in terms of IM presence and conferencing, they are available in all sort of these combinations. But when you come to dial-in conferencing, if you're an on-premises user or an on-premises user in a hybrid deployment, that is possible via the local PBX or PSTN connectivity that you have, to your Skype for Business environment. But if you're an online user, either being a pure online or an online user with hybrid, then the dial-in conferencing can be provided only via an audio conferencing provider within Office 365, or we have recently announced a service called as Microsoft PSTN Conferencing, which can be utilized here to provide dial-in conferencing. Similarly, you'll see for enterprise voice, if you're an on-premises user or a non-premises user within a hybrid deployment, the enterprise voice will be provided via local PBX or PSTN. You may have a SIP trunk or PRI lines coming to your office, and that's where you would start to utilize that for making outbound calls or receiving calls. But let's assume that you're an online user, a pure online or an online user in a hybrid deployment. At that point in time, the PSTN options for you are either use our Microsoft PSTN services, which is today only available within the United States and UK, or you could also, as an online user, utilize on-premises PSTN connectivity, and we'll talk about that in detail in our future slides. Persistent chat is something that is only available on premises, not available in online today. Broadcast meeting, again, as a pure on-premises user, it's not available, but if you take a look at on-premises user in a hybrid deployment, you can access broadcast meeting, and that's where I say, you can be an on-premises user, but if you were to really take advantages of some of the features that are only available in cloud, you can deploy hybrid, and that's where hybrid becomes, the most popular choice by our customers. Take a look at cloud conferencing recording. That's, again, available within broadcast meeting, and any user who is right now in a hybrid deployment can do that. Video interrupt server is a new server role that we introduced with our Skype for Business Server 2015, which helps you integrate your Skype for Business meetings with Cisco Tandberg VTC devices. That is right now on premises, but if those who have seen our Skype preview, if you're not familiar with that, go to skypepreview.com and you'll see that we are working on getting this available for our cloud users as well. In terms of an APIs, users that are on premises have wider control and a lot of APIs that they can utilize. The users on online or our online system only support selected APIs, so that's where the control and integration aspect comes into picture. So the reason behind showing these slides to you is to just make sure that we understand there's no feature parity between on-premises and online. There are certain features that are available on-premises and certain features that are available online, and then hybrid gives you best of both. That's really going to be an important decision for you to move to the cloud and understand that the set of users that you want to migrate to cloud will have, do they require these features, and are these features available in cloud? So I would really start with that kind of a discussion. But let's say, that you made a decision about hybrid. But before that, I have a few questions here that I want to quickly get answered. When will persistent chat be available online? It's right now we're taking nominations for a preview. There has not been a public ETA announced for it. But get in touch with John, me, and Pranavi. We have some email address at the end, and we can talk about some of the possible dates there. There's another question around, we currently have E4 licensing pricing at 24 guaranteed until June 2018. We are moving to AudioCode's Skype for Business hybrid UC model, Office 365 Exchange email, and with on-premises AudioCode's cloud-bound system. We are concerned that MS will force us to move fully to cloud through their licensing muscle. I know you can't speak for MS, but is that a valid concern? We're in Seattle. Again, there are deployment choices, and we will talk about what choices you have, in terms of deployment. Let's evaluate these, and if there are follow-up questions, by all means, just get in touch with us, and we'll talk about this specific scenario in detail. There are additional questions in terms of Avaya IPO Office integrate with Skype for Business. I have to elaborate that question a little more in terms of what integration or what specific feature integration are you looking for. And yeah, there are a lot of questions, but we will actually take them in a few. So There's one more question which is important. The following features are not supported by Cloud PBX with on-premises PSTN connectivity: branch survivability, location-based routing, call admission control, call via work, private line, response groups, call park. Number porting. Is it part of PSTN calling plan? Is this correct? PSTN calling plan is only in certain regions today, like US and UK. So something like location-based routing is definitely out of scope for the PSTN calling plans. Call admission control is not on the plans yet. If you talk about call via work, that is something on an internal roadmap. If you're talking about response groups in auto attendant, again, you will see that information in our skypepreview.com that we are looking for nominations of people who want to be early adopter for testing these features within our Cloud PBX. So go ahead and take a look at more details in skypepreview.com. You'll see what is in roadmap there. There is one more question. What about an option for users with Skype for Business only? I'm entered under...
Yeah, Sandeep. That was about the poll. Okay. And we didn't have an option specifically for Skype for Business user only. It's just that when we ran the poll originally, we didn't have, it was kind of early on in the Skype for Business rollout, so we didn't expect to have too many people that were Skype for Business only. But I'm happy to hear that there are. And so you picked the right choice other, but it's good that you noted it, that it is Skype for Business only, so thank you for that.
Great, and thanks for asking these questions. That really helps us, make this interactive. But coming back to our discussion, if you made a choice about hybrid, there are certain things that you need to really consider. One of the very important things that I see around is when you have multiple forests and a Skype for Business deployment in a multiple forest. Let's assume that you have a resource forest where you have Skype for Business installed and a user forest where your users actually exist, something like what we show on the right-hand side of this diagram here. Where in resource forest you have Skype for Business, and the user forest you have your user accounts. Earlier, we did not support this topology for Skype for Business hybrid, but we do now with the newer options that we have available in Azure AD Connect, where we can join users from both resource forest and user forest to project them in Office 365. There's one thing that you need to keep in mind, though, is Exchange Server. Now, if there's an Exchange Server in this topology, that has to be either completely Exchange Online, or that Exchange has to be installed on the resource forest. If the Exchange is in a different forest, including the user forest, then a hybrid is not supported by Microsoft in this scenario for Skype for Business. That's going to be a deployment blocker. So if you are starting with Skype for Business today, and if you're looking at deploying Skype for Business, as far as possible, do not deploy a resource forest. If you must, for whatever reason, and I've seen very genuine reasons for deploying a resource forest, make sure that your Exchange is also in the same forest as your Skype for Business. That will really help you being in a supported environment to go to hybrid, and does not look like a deployment blocker for you. So I wanted to kind of highlight that. I see this very often in the field. Coming to the next slide is about decision tree in moving to the cloud. So if you take a look at this flow chart here, we really want to kind of give you certain points when how would you make a decision of moving to cloud. So at the beginning of this flow chart, you'll see the first box is where you see, do you have an existing PBX and do you have unique functionality? Okay. We have to also understand what the Cloud PBX provides us today, but there are certain PBX that have unique functionalities, and that may be very unique with that specific vendor. Um, if you have, then find out that does all of those users require to stay on that PBX because of that functionality requirement. If the answer to that is yes, then investigate replacing that PBX with a Skype for Business server. A Skype for Business server is our, I would rather call it as a full functional PBX, but again, you cannot compare one PBX features with another. So investigate if you can utilize that. But if your all users does not need to be on your existing PBX, then you can move some of the users to the cloud PBX. Now, another question that I would ask is, does all of these users reside in the US or UK where we have our PSTN calling options available? Now, if they are, then consider using Microsoft PSTN, which really means that you're making Microsoft as your telephone service provider. Then you can straight away use Cloud PBX with PSTN calling, which is the simplest form of this setup. Really gets you started in minutes. But if your users are not in these regions, then you can utilize an existing on-premises Lync or Skype for Business environment to provide PSTN connectivity to the Cloud PBX. You can still move users to Skype for Business Online and have them utilize Cloud PBX, but the PSTN connectivity part of it can come through an on-premises Lync Server 2013 or Skype for Business Server 2015 environment. What if you do not have an on-premises deployment of Lync or Skype for Business? At that point in time, you can use what we call it as a Cloud Connector Edition, which is a set of 4 VMs that you can deploy, which will help you really get that PSTN connectivity from your on-premises to the Cloud PBX. And I also understand that some of our other partners like Audio Codes are developing an appliance that will help you do that. So you don't really have to use the VMs that we provide, but you have an appliance that you can use so that your on-premises SIP trunk provider or PRI lines, that whatever you have, can connect to Cloud PBX for providing the PSTN connectivity. So that was just a simple guidelines for you to help evaluate what is the right solution for you. Let's say that you made a decision to move all workloads to cloud, and this is really some high-level overview of how that approach would look like. On the left-hand side, I have an on-premises deployment where I have all workloads on-premises. On the right-hand side, I have all workloads in the cloud, and I want to gradually move from on-premises to the cloud. So what we really see is when a customer has all of his workloads on premises and they're evaluating cloud, they want to really go ahead and pilot some of their users with the cloud experience. And that is one of the reasons you could do a hybrid deployment. And that's a unique solution, or unique solution that we have, where we can have an on-premises deployment and a cloud deployment work in a hybrid mode, right? So you can deploy hybrid. You can pilot some of the users with our Skype for Business Online. Users that are really at low risk, use hybrid for it. And one of the other thing around hybrid is when customers start to talk about Skype for Business, they can get started with Skype for Business in minutes. And as they evaluate what their needs are, they can later on deploy on-premises Skype for Business, and then after the fact deploy a hybrid. So that is one good thing around Skype for Business, that you can start in minutes with online and then deploy an on-premises for hybrid. While you have these users in Skype for Business Online, your enterprise voice will still be through on-premises Skype for Business deployment or a PBX that you may have. As a next step, you can look at utilizing Skype for Business Online for IM presence, audio, video. That is what the users that are moved into an online pool will have. We could start to look at Cloud PSTN, depending upon where the user location is. Look at utilizing our meeting broadcast for large meeting capabilities. Your enterprise voice can still come through on premises for all the users. Here's one question that I get almost in every discussion that we talk about, Cloud PBX and PSTN calling, is can I have set of users that use Microsoft PSTN calling, and can I have set of users that utilize our on-premises PSTN? And that is possible. You can have mix of these two services. You can have a set of users that get a Microsoft PSTN number and another subset of users that can still utilize PSTN services through your on-premises deployment. So, and then on the third step, you'll see that you can utilize Skype for Business Online for IM presence, audio video conferencing, Cloud PSTN services. Your email is also within Office 365, and your enterprise voice can be completely through PSTN calling services within Office 365, depending upon the user location again, or through an on-premises PSTN connectivity. There are a couple of things around why would someone still want to use an on-premises PSTN connectivity within US or UK, is they may have contract with their current service provider, and that contract may just be for a few more months or years, and they want to continue using them as a service provider versus transferring that service to Microsoft. So that is another thing. And one more thing that I want to make a point here is look at moving your Exchange workload first into Office 365 before you start looking at moving your Skype for Business to online. There are a couple of questions, and one is, are SBAs coming out with Skype for Business Server 2015, or they will only be with Link 2013? Now, the survivable branch appliances really are our partner created devices. So I'm sure that there will be ones that are coming in with SFB 2015. There are some that are in validation process right now, but since they are majorly being driven by our partners, they would really be able to announce formally in terms of when they will be coming. And I guess this question is from the previous slide in terms of why two-way trust was required. That was for the multi-forest hybrid. In a resource forest and account forest, again, you don't necessarily require two-way trust, but the diagram may have that. You can have one-way trust and still do this. So moving to the next slide. There's this poll.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandeep. And we talked a lot about the cloud. And so let's try and find out what are your plans to move to the cloud. So we'll have a 1-minute poll now. So I'm going to start the voting. So the choices are: we'll stay on premise for the foreseeable future. We're looking to move some workloads to the cloud in a hybrid environment. We have a hybrid environment now, or we've begun the process of moving completely to the cloud. And the last option is we are completely cloud-based now. And again, this is 100% anonymous, and we're just trying to get an idea for what your plans are for the future for the cloud or what you're currently running today. So take a moment to vote, and we'll leave the poll open for about another minute or so. So right now we got the first vote came in for hybrid, and another one came in for staying put for now. Take a few more moments to fill it in. About a quarter of you are completely cloud. Actually, more now. A third of you are completely cloud-based now, which is interesting. That's a response I didn't expect. I don't know about you, Sandeep or Pranavi, but that's kind of interesting. It's encouraging to see that people are actually embracing the cloud, and that so many people have already made the move to 100% cloud-based, which is interesting. Okay.
And like I said, the majority of deployments are hybrid, and this is where we will see a lot of, existing on-premises deployment will also soon become hybrid. That's kind of a preferred choice these days, and which kind of reflects in this results as well.
Okay, I'm going to give you 10 more seconds to weigh in, and then we're going to move forward. So, if you haven't yet voted and you want to cast your vote, feel free to do so, and then we're going to move forward to talk about the cloud PBX and the choices that you have. So I'm going to stop the voting now, and we'll go to the next slide. Sandeep?
Great. I guess there was another question you did not ask: who is moving from online to on-premises? I guess
moving the other way. Yeah.
Yeah, we do see some of these scenarios as well where the customer wants to move from online to on-premises, and like I said, the hybrid deployment would really be the preferred choice, because it gives you a way to move from online to on-premises and on-premises to online according to your will. So you can decide when do you want to move back to on-premises. Now I'll talk about some of that scenario as well, but let's talk about Cloud PBX and what kind of choices do you have. The first one is pure cloud-based solution where you have all of your users in Skype for Business Online, and you're utilizing Cloud PBX for your PBX features. And the PSTN services are provided by Microsoft. In this scenario, you do not really require any Skype for Business infrastructure to be installed on premises, because your services, your PBX, and your PSTN is all being provided to you via cloud. This is the PSTN services specifically are only available within United States, including Puerto Rico and UK at this point in time. If you go to our Skype preview, you will see that we're working on the geo expansion of these services. But that's just the PSTN calling services. Our Cloud PBX is available worldwide. So what if you are in a location where you don't have the PSTN calling services available? And that's where you can take a look at the other two options that we have here. The first one is where you have an on-premises PSTN connectivity and you utilize Cloud Connector Edition, which means you have your existing service provider, which provides you PSTN via SIP trunk or PRI lines, and you have those coming to your office. You have subscribed for a plan that gives you access to Cloud PBX within Skype for Business Online. You can then use this on-premises PSTN connectivity with the Cloud PBX. And if you don't have any infrastructure around Skype for Business Server 2015 or Link server, you can utilize this Cloud Connector Edition, which is, like I mentioned, a set of 4 VMs that you can deploy to have Cloud PBX connect with your on-premises for PSTN connectivity. It's again available worldwide, and the set of 4 VMs are really free. But if you have a server or a Skype for Business 2015 or Link 2013 server, you can then configure hybrid, and you can also get that advantage of having some users on premises and some users in online, and provide PSTN connectivity that way from your on-premises to cloud. So you have these choices available, depending upon completely Cloud PSTN calling services, or if you have existing Skype for Business deployment, then do hybrid. If you don't, then use Cloud Connector Edition. So there are choices available, and you can use one of these. So again, a couple of questions in terms of with hybrid. Can we home users on premises so that we can keep AV meetings traffic local? Yes, you can keep all users on premises, and the hybrid will really help you get some, presence within our online services, so you can utilize meeting broadcast kind of features. So within hybrid, you have a choice where you can keep all users on premises, all users online, or a set of users on premises and online. Another question is, why did you recommend to move Exchange first? What should be the considerations to move Skype for Business first? The reason I mentioned to move Exchange first is because that will give you a full-featured integration between Skype for Business and Exchange. Let's take an example. You have moved a user to Skype for Business online and enabled him for enterprise voice there. To be able to get access to voicemail integration within Exchange, you need to be on Exchange Online for that. If your Exchange mailbox is on premises, let's say that your Exchange is also in a hybrid deployment, and if your Exchange mailbox is on premises, we do not support voicemail to your mailbox. So that is another thing that you've got to keep in mind. Again, there's a TechNet article that we have that talks about some of the features that won't work, like archiving, if your mailbox is on premises. So that's why our recommendation is to move Exchange first so that you get full fidelity features. Moving on here with Skype for Business and PSTN calling options. When you're online, you get Cloud PBX with Office 365, and you get PSTN services provided by Microsoft. If you're in a hybrid deployment, and if your users are homed in Office 365, then you can use the PSTN services that are provided to you at your on-premises deployment. You can, like I mentioned, however, have some users gain PSTN within cloud itself via the PSTN calling, depending upon the region, though. But if you are in a hybrid deployment and you're homed on premises, then the PSTN services are provided to you via your current on-premises enterprise voice deployment. So another question, how do the current features in Cloud PBX with PSTN and conferencing compare with my full feature via Aura Premises PBX? My understanding is that MS Cloud PBX just has basic features, basic call routing, whole conferencing drop. And you're partially correct on this, that with the Cloud PBX today, we have a set of features that may not be comparable with a full-featured PBX. But like I said, we are on a journey here, and if you take a look at some of our upcoming features in skypepreview.com, you'll see that we are bringing in the call routing features, our call tree features, including auto attendant and response groups within our Cloud PBX. So we're really getting there. But that's where a hybrid would make a lot of sense for you, because our Skype for Business on premises has most of these features that probably some of these standard third-party PBX provides today. So great. We have been speaking about this Cloud PBX with on-premises PSTN connectivity, and you would see that here on the left-hand side, I have an online infrastructure, which is our Office 365. And I have a user, and incidentally, his name is also John. So he's trying to access, or he's an online user with a Cloud PBX. And he's trying to, make a PSTN call. In this, what really would happen is when he, let's say, initiates a call to a PSTN number, our online infrastructure would route that media to on-premises edge server, as shown in this diagram here. And the on-premises edge server would send us to our mediation server, front-end server, mediation server connected to the gateway that you have to the PSTN world. So that, we just want to kind of show you in terms of how that on-premises PSTN connectivity is established. And if you talk about a solution where you don't have an on-premises Skype for Business or Link deployment, then you can take a look at, just imagine the same thing that is shown in the diagram here on the central part, but just without a front-end server. We would have 4 set of VMs provided through the Cloud Connector Edition here that would handle that routing, connecting to your PSTN services through your existing service provider. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide. So, like I said, hybrid is the most preferred choice. What are some of the planning considerations here? You would need to understand your Active Directory forest design, and we spoke briefly about that. If you have multiple forests, how should you place your other workloads? You need to synchronize your on-premises identities with cloud, so you need to deploy Azure AD Connect. You can choose to deploy ADFS, or the Azure AD Connect tool will also give you password synchronization. Think about Link and Skype for Business server version. So the hybrid is supported with Link 2010, Link 2013, and Skype for Business Server 2015. So you have choices there. If you have Link 2010, you have to have another machine where you would deploy Link 2013 management tools or Skype for Business Server 2015 management tools for the hybrid. But Link 2010 as such can do a hybrid with Skype for Business Online. You would require an edge server to be deployed within your on-premises deployment, and of course federation with our online so that you can use shared namespace or shared SIP address. But when you actually looking at what features are critical for end users before you could move them to cloud, understand the differences between on-premises and online capabilities. We spoke about some enterprise voice specific capabilities, but we also spoke about persistent chat that is only available on premises. So if a user requires persistent chat today, you can't move him to online. And so you find out what those users and requirements are and keep them on premises. Other users that do not have these specific requirements or online currently has all those features, you can move them to online. Also, you may have legal requirements for keeping some users on premises, and maybe that may span within geographies as well. You can't move the set of users into cloud. That would force you to retain some of the users on premises. Also, Skype for Business availability in your region could be around PSTN calling capabilities today. And then you could also identify your user profiles or segments for which you can, move some users to online versus keep them on premises. Something like student teacher, that's just an example here. But let's say, your contract employees that do not require access to most of the advanced features, but needs just basic IM presence capabilities plus some or whatever features that currently cloud provides them can be moved online without having to worry about scalability of your on-premises deployment. So, well, I spoke about that. There are some questions here. Do we need a reverse proxy on premises? Reverse proxy is needed on premises because reverse proxy really does your link discover. Or holds your link discover record, and if you have mobile devices, so it's not an absolutely must for this hybrid deployment. But again, if you have a link deployment, you would most typically have a reverse proxy so that you can have your simple URLs that needs to kind of proxy back to your front-end servers, or your link discover for mobile devices. And there's another question: is there a checkbox comparison box hosted versus on-premises link already deployed, etc., that identifies the carrier ID infrastructure requisite for conflict? If you actually ask that question via email to us, we'll be able to guide you more through that. So let's move forward. And here's a list of what the Cloud PBX features that we have today. And as someone mentioned, these could be basic but important ones compared to other PBX that are available in the market. But again, if you look at Cloud Preview, Skype Preview, you'll see that the advanced features like auto attendant, virtual receptionist, and some of the call tree functions are coming within Cloud PBX. So you will see soon in some of the next sessions that we start talking about these new features as well. But these are some of the important ones are, of course, ability for you to answer calls, retrieve hold calls, call forwarding or team calling, or music on hold. These are available. You also have qualified IP desk phones, and we have a link at the end where you can actually go ahead and see what those devices are. Some of the benefits of PSTN calling within cloud is, it's cheaper and really faster to get started. I can essentially go to my tenant right now, acquire a number, and start using that number immediately. It's as fast as that, and that really gives you the flexibility and scalability that we were speaking about. From an administration purpose, again, it's you pay one bill for all of your communication, be it your Exchange hosting, your Skype for Business, and your telephone bill. So you just have one bill that covers everything. Gives you a lot of administration, or saves a lot of administration efforts. Again, being on cloud, you have all the latest updates being delivered automatically. You don't have to really take down a maintenance. You can pick up new numbers within cloud, or if you have a set of numbers that are currently being provided to you by your current service provider, you can port those numbers to Skype for Business, so you retain your phone numbers as well. And there is absolutely no need for any server software on premises, so really maintenance and the cost of power is saved there. It's really easier to administer, and you'll see how we have made voicemail really easy to manage right now if you are in a Cloud PBX. And you'll see some of the new features like auto attendant and response groups are being really made easier in the cloud as well when they are released. There is PSTN consumption-based billing also. So if if you get PSTN calling services, you get about 3,000 minutes for domestic calling and 600 minutes for international calling. But if you overuse those minutes, then you can supply additional calling capabilities via the consumption-based billing, and then you get charged per minute. And we have that charge sheet available where you can see how much is the charge for a call to a specific country as well. So PSTN calling really combines with Cloud PBX license. You can add PSTN calling plan with an E5 license user, $12 for domestic calling and $24 for domestic plus international. If you're using E3 kind of a license, then you can add Cloud PBX and then PSTN calling plan licenses. We have two calling plans available, the PSTN domestic calling plan and domestic and international calling plan. The differences between them is, like I said, in US we give 3,000 minutes for domestic calling and 600 minutes for international calling. In UK, it's 1,200 minutes for domestic calling and 600 minutes for international calling. If you exceed those, then we can use our consumption-based billing, where you have where you kind of purchase some dollars of consumption, and you can associate that with a set of users that can then use that for continuing with their PSTN calling. And with that, we are at our another poll, and hand this over to John.
Thank you, Sandeep. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the cloud. Now we talked about the cloud PBX. So let's take our last poll. So what are your plans for the cloud PBX? So we're going to start the voting right now. So we plan to deploy PSTN calling service. We plan to deploy with on-premise PSTN connectivity via the Cloud Connector Edition. We plan to deploy on-premise PSTN connectivity with an existing deployment, and we have no plans for using a cloud PBX. So again, these are completely anonymous. Take a moment to let us know what your plans are. And while we're doing that, there was a comment more than a question that came from the audience that says you need to speak to MS licensing as you move to the cloud for those that are considering the move to the cloud. And that's a very prudent suggestion, because as we heard in the discussions, there is a lot of opportunity to do things in a customized way for your environment. So each individual move is going to be slightly different than another. So there's not one blanket answer. So absolutely talk to your Microsoft licensing person when you're getting ready for that move. And then there was a question about hosted cloud connectivity and about 4 VMs and SIP trunk connected to PSTN completely. Any third-party data center provider. We will not have anything on-premise except internet, and third-party providers can connect itself to PSTN and cloud PBX. Sandeep, how would you address that?
I'll take that. And I worked with somebody in Canada who is doing this for their customers. So they are setting up Cloud Connect within their data center and a SIP trunk that comes to their data center to provide you kind of hosted voice for your Skype for Business online. So that is very much possible.
Okay, great. Okay, and now let's take a look at the poll. We're just about to stop the voting. We have let's take the last 10 seconds. We'll cast our votes, and then we'll stop voting. We'll move to the conclusion of today's webinar. And again, please feel free to continue to submit questions. If we don't get a chance to answer them on the call, we'll be happy to answer them via email. Okay, I'm going to stop the voting now and go back to our presentation. And also, I want to put in a plug here. We do these things on a monthly basis. We want to make sure that we're meeting your needs. So please, at the end of this webinar, take a moment to provide your feedback. Even a one-sentence feedback will be very helpful for us. And of course, you have an opportunity to rate the session as well. So going back to unified communications, and we talked all today about Skype for Business, but we're all well aware that there's more to the world than Link and Skype for Business. There's also the rest of the world. There's the Cisco environments, the VIA environments, and all the other components that make up a complete unified communication system. And that's what our product does. Our product called Prognosis will allow you to monitor your entire environment from a single pane of glass. So if you want additional information about it, there'll be a click at the end. I don't want this to be a commercial. I just wanted to make it. I just want to inform you that that's what we do, and that's the capabilities that we can provide to our customers. Also, we're doing something this year that we haven't done in the past, and we're opening up our summit to customers. In the past, we've only invited certain customers to the event, but now we're making it open to anyone who would like to attend. It's a 2-day summit specifically about Prognosis and how it works. And there's going to be 2 dedicated tracks there, one for unified communications and one for call centers. There's also going to be an executive track for senior executives on why it's important to monitor your system and how that works and the ROI involved there. It will take place this October in Denver, which is our U.S. headquarters, for 2 days. If you want additional information about how to attend or why to attend, you can click on the link. All the links that you see in this presentation are live links, and they will be available to you when you download the slide deck, okay? Looks like another question came in. Yes, this is for Canada. Okay, Mark has answered. Canada, I was just there last week. Beautiful place. All right, and then our next slide, this is where we have additional resources. So all of these, again, are live links. There's links there for considerations around the Skype for Business Server 2015. There's what's called the RASC kit, which is incredibly useful. It's for rollout and adoption of success. It's tailored primarily for Link, but if you do a search and replace in the Word document for Link and replace it with Skype for Business, just about everything holds true. There's also, as Sandeep mentioned earlier, a link about specific phones and devices that are qualified for Microsoft Link and Skype for Business. So if you want to make sure that you're investing or buying the right hardware for your new environment, that link will be very useful for you. And with that, just wanted to talk about our next two series upcoming webinars. One is going to be on the Skype for Business Network pre-assessment. And for those of you who may have been following the activities coming out of the Worldwide Partner Conference last week, there was a discussion about what's known as the Skype for Business Operations Framework. Part of that's going to require a network pre-assessment. So all of these new investments going into companies that are buying Skype for Business and deploying it, you want to make sure that your network is ready for it. And we'll have an entire webinar focused on the network pre-assessment and what's needed there. And then following that, we'll have one specifically about the Skype for Business Operations Framework and what you need to know about that and how it'll have an impact on the way you learn about Skype for Business environment, training involved in rolling that out, and keeping it going and maintaining it on an ongoing basis. And with that, Prognosis is our software, and that's what we do. We monitor and troubleshoot and keep your systems running properly. We'll help you during the installation phase with pre-assessment. So if you have additional information, again, these are live links. They'll be available to you when you download the slide deck. And if you need to reach any of us on the call today, our emails are there. I'm John Hand. And I'm john.hand@ir.com, and Pranavi and Sandeep, they're available. And with that, we just want to thank you for spending the last hour with us. We really do appreciate your time. We know that time is one of your most important commodities, and for you to take the time to spend with us and learn a little bit more about Skype for Business and a little bit more about IR and Prognosis, we really appreciate it. With that, I will leave a few minutes for our guests to speak. Sandeep, do you want to say anything?
I just want to thank you, everyone, for spending their time. I'm sure that we made good value of your time. And then, we're working with John to make sure that we bring in content that resonates well with you, that kind of helps you move forward, making better choices for your deployments. So I hope that we see you again in our future sessions. And I really want to thank you again, everyone, for your time today.
Pranavi, you get the last word.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's session. While we wanted to cover hybrid, we do understand that there are a lot of points that you might want to discuss. You have our email addresses. If you need anything, just drop an email to John, Sandeep, or me, and we can get in touch with you on a case-to-case basis. Once again, thank you all for joining today's session.
Thank you, Pranavi. Thank you, Sandeep. And I said you'd have the last word, but I'm actually going to steal it from you. And I'm going to just encourage you all to please take one more moment to fill out the survey or provide feedback. A question came in that says, thank you, guys and gal. That was more of a comment than a question, but we appreciate that, and we'll take that. Again, take a moment to provide feedback. You can rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best. And again, thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day, wherever you may be.